Welcome to my morning respite, a place to gain rest and inspiration. A call from silence. The container stands quite blandly and feebly on the study table, with a covering that wears a translucently clear appearance. The top shows off its mystified ways to unendingly cap and trap the things that can never be heard, felt, or explored. The many secrets that lie within the much hollow cavity, the many things that form the pith of this feeble container. The clear appearance of its substance belies something so much more debilitating to be held in captivity. The many haunted experiences, the many apoptotic thoughts, the daunting whispers that yearn to shout, the foment of its time, the internal machinations, the rumbling and tumbling that sets its pace within. A slight glance to the bottom, on which all its transparency beats about, reveals the flaking, layers peeling below, but the remains of which still holds on only to the confines of this container, never really making contact with its contents. The sealed container holds quite still on this study table, never really revealing the stories that it keeps wishing to believe. For the external one looking in may think, perhaps nothing is within, only a vacuum. But is a vacuum really nothing? Or does it speak to the promise of something? For if nothing is there, then what keeps the confines of this container in perfect equilibrium with itself? How can we really delve deeper to figure out the existence of this absence? Do we really want to go there? For if we dare to peer through while uncovering this cup, would it not only draw from the things around to assume the color, the traces of all that abounds? Alternatively, if perhaps the container is left to be heated, would it, if something is actually there, the contents within, would it not become so expanded to the point of explosion and then eventual obliteration? The clear sight of this container gives no hint to what it can actually do. Just still it remains on the study table. It decides to neither shrink to be imploded nor expand to its limit. It just stays there in constant equilibrium, never really releasing what it holds. There is still a gap, a discrepancy that remains. The defect in communication between the inner and outer worlds, the contrast that builds over time. There is a pause, a hesitancy to open what continues to remain unknown. There is a brewing fear and anxiety, the unpleasant anticipation of coming to terms with the outcome. The conscience now has conversation with itself. It dares to find out what is hidden in the confines of the container. It wants to open it. It wants to discover. But at the same time, it is too afraid of what might be discovered. It knows, it feels the unsettling waves that it holds. Yet, forever still it seemingly appears to be. The cap makes the big difference between slavery and freedom, living in fear or living in love, between the known and the unknown. Either way, there is risk on either side of the channel. The cap of this container holding the key to what potentially can be, to be set free what was always hidden in plain sight. No longer to be held captive by those daunting and haunting thoughts. No longer slave to those dark images once held. No longer bonded by what was kept hidden. Just only to be free. Just only to be. The cap grows thinner with thought. As time wears on, the outer grows closer to the inner, until at last there is convergence for the inner and the outer, no longer serving as layers. There is oneness. The opposites meet to neutralize, to give merit to the other. For there never really was that stillness, that apparent silence. For while on the outer side, the inner called quite desperately to meet with the outer. It called and shouted. It wanted to be noticed and recognized by the outer. The cap gave light to this event, for time was needed. Urgency was critical for the convergence to even begin to occur. For a vacuum was never really there, the seeming image just only to deceive, to lead the outer eye to question, to probe, and to finally decide to meet with that inner world.